Hello and welcome back to me reading from The Silver Crown, a lovely book from my childhood by Robert O'Brien, who I believe did pass away not too many years ago, sadly, before I had a chance probably to love to be able to tell him how much I love this book. Anyway, so let's continue. We've finished 8 chapters, so we're now on chapter 9, A Cry in the Night. So get yourselves comfortable and I shall begin. In the middle of Mrs. Fitzpatrick's house, there was one big, cluttered, comfortable, rectangular chamber that served as kitchen, dining and living room combined. Her wood stove was the biggest object in it. It was made of velvet black cast iron, and it had 6 round stove lids as big as pies, and an oven big enough to hold a grown man, if properly folded. It stood on 6 shiny legs and was studded with gleaming nickel-plated knobs and spring wire handles to regulate the draughts and open and close the doors. Its firebox had a glass window so you could see the glowing logs inside. Out over the whole thing curved a great metal hood with wide shelves to put things on to keep them warm. And above that, like a single huge organ stop, rose the stovepipe, curving majestically up and into the chimney. The smells that came out of it were just as beautiful, the smell of cloves and ham, of roasting sweet potatoes, of fresh bread, and piercing through all of these, of a sweet cake baking. At the stove end of the room, near a window, stood a plain wooden trestle table with benches along the sides and a chair at the end. The other end of the room was lined with bookshelves, and books stood on them all the way up to the ceiling. There were blue books, brown books, green ones and black ones, but most notably they were all old books, except for a few on an end of one of the lower shelves. These were children's books that Otto had acquired one way or another. At the end of the room there was an old but comfortable sofa, several wooden chairs, a window seat with potted flowers growing on it, and a cushion to sit on, and a big, rather ugly new armchair. At one end of the sofa stood a lamp table with a pretty old-fashioned kerosene lamp on it. The mate of this lamp, which had a flowery white shade, stood on the dining table. A third hung from the ceiling near the stove. As evening fell and dinner time came, Mrs. Fitzpatrick lit all 3 of these with a match. They gave off a pleasant, warm yellow light, much nicer than electric bulbs. Perhaps, as Otto had said, Mrs. Fitzpatrick did not have much money now, but she obviously had had some once, because when Ellen said, as her mother had taught her, "May I help?" Mrs. Fitzpatrick smiled and said, "You may set the table if you like," and she led Ellen to the cabinet where the table-setting things were kept. Her knives, spoons and forks were heavy, antique sterling silver, and there were a great many of them, all stored in a velvet-lined box of silver inlaid wood, not the kind of things any poor bride would have had. Her tablecloths and napkins, too, were of fine, heavy damask, and none of these obviously had come from a wrecked truck, since both linens and silver bore on each piece the same monogram, and Old English or Old Irish letters F.P. Ellen's dinner was even better than the meal she had had before. After they had finished eating, Mrs. Fitzpatrick pushed back her chair and said, "Now, we will clean up the dishes, and then, Ellen, you must tell me your story, everything that has happened to you, so we can decide whether you are still in danger and what you should do next. Half an hour later, they sat at the other end of the room, Mrs. Fitzpatrick on the sofa next to the lamp, Otto next to her, and Ellen in the armchair, which was comfortable despite being ugly. They made an odd little group, sitting there in the golden lamplight in the house in the dark woods. "Now," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick, "begin at the beginning." "I will," said Ellen. "It began yesterday morning at 7 o'clock. I woke up in my room, and it was my birthday." "Begin a little before that," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick, "and tell me where you lived and about your family." So Ellen did that, and then came back to the morning of her birthday, and told about going to the park, and hearing the fire engines, and running back, and about the fireman and Officer Drogue. She told about the shooting at the store, and the green hood, and the strange thing Officer Drogue had said before he ran off. "You're sure that's what he said?" asked Mrs. Fitzpatrick. "Another green hood?" "Yes," said Ellen, "but he wasn't saying it to me, he was saying it to himself." "But you yourself had not seen anyone in a green hood before?" "Well," said Ellen, and then she remembered something she had forgotten until this moment. "When I first started from the house, I remember now, I thought I saw somebody down the road, and I thought he had a green face. But then I decided it was just some leaves. It was misty." Mrs. Fitzpatrick's expression now became less puzzled and more grim. Otto was listening raptly. But since neither of them had said anything more, Ellen continued her story. She told about the fat man and the postcard and Mr. Gates, about running away from him through the woods, and all the rest, up to meeting Otto. Yet there was one strange thing, at first without realizing it, and then realizing it purposely, she carefully avoided ever mentioning the silver crown. She did not know why. She had an odd feeling that perhaps it should be kept a secret. She kept thinking that when she got to the end, then she could tell about the crown. But when she had got to the end, she was still undecided, so she said nothing. Mrs. Fitzpatrick, however, seemed to see a hole in a story as clearly as a hole in a window pane. She looked at Ellen with her sharp grey eyes and shook her head. "You have not told it all," she said. "Your story does not ring true. Some piece of it is missing. I can sense it. I cannot help you unless you tell me everything that happened. Now think hard. You have forgotten something important. What?" Ellen looked at the floor. She was ashamed. "I didn't forget anything. I just didn't tell it all. I'm sorry, but I will now." Her mind was finally made up. She went to the bedroom that she had slept in and got her handbag from under the pillow, where she had left it when she climbed out of the window. She carried it back to the living room. She took out the silver crown, its stones glittering like blue snowflakes in the lamplight, and she put it on her head. "This is what I didn't tell," she said. "It's a crown I got for my birthday." It was Otto who spoke first. He had drawn back, as if in fright at the sight of the crown, and then when he spoke his voice was full of awe. "It's magical," he said to Mrs. Fitzpatrick, almost whispering. "It makes her look different, like somebody else." Mrs. Fitzpatrick said, "No, not like somebody else. Like herself, but more like herself than most people can ever look." "I don't understand," said Otto, and Ellen, who had been about to say the same thing, kept still. "Nor do I," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick. "At least, not entirely, but I think I have heard of this crown before. In fact, if it is the crown I believe it is, then it is quite famous, though that is not to say that its fame is known to a very large number of people. And magical is not exactly the right word for it, unless by magic you mean simply something you do not understand. And if that's all you mean, then almost everything is magical. And to Ellen she said, "Now I begin to understand a little of your story, and I will give you some advice. You had an instinct, a feeling, that the crown should be kept secret. You were right. From now on, show it to no one, and tell no one about it, unless you are sure he is your friend, much surer than you are of me. Although I am your friend, and I will try to help you, I might have been deceiving you, and there are those who would deceive you and even kill you to get it from you. And now, tell me, who gave it to you?" "I don't know," said Ellen, and she told how she had found it lying on her pillow when she awoke. "I just thought it was a present, but I didn't think about how it got there. I just thought it was mine." "And so it is," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick. "That much is obvious at a glance." She thought for a few minutes and then asked, "This Aunt Sarah you spoke about, did she ever mention this crown or any crown?" "No," said Ellen, wondering, trying hard to remember. She added with some embarrassment, "But she did tell me that I was truly a queen, and I didn't need just to pretend I was." "And so you are," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick. "But queen of where? Queen of what? That is what we must find out. Or rather, that is what you must find out. I am afraid I cannot help you much in that. Only a few can wear this crown, and I am not one of them." "Oh, but you may be if you want to." Ellen took it off and held it out to her. "True, I can put it on, but it would have no such effect on me as it does on you." "I don't understand." "Nor do I, not well enough to explain it to you." She went to one of the bookshelves high up where some of the oldest and mustiest volumes stood, and took one down. "There is something I must read, if I can find it," she said. "And it's time for you to go to bed, Ellen. I found something for you in one of the cupboards." And she opened the door and produced a soft blue flannel nightgown, just Ellen's size. It was odd that she happened to have it, but it was lucky for Ellen, who had slept all the last night in her clothes. Before she went to her room, Ellen said, "There's something else I remembered I didn't tell you. When I wrote to Aunt Sarah, I told her about the crown in the postcard." "I'm glad of that," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick, "because we do know that she is your friend. I am sure she, too, knows something about the crown, and if she has received your postcard, you may be sure that she is worrying about you and it, and probably searching for you right now." Then she added rather grimly, "The trouble is, others are searching for you too. We must be sure they don't find you first." Ellen put on her nightgown, hanging her clothes carefully down on a hanger to get at least some of the wrinkles out, for she would have to wear them again tomorrow. She got into bed and was asleep in 3 minutes. It was the darkest part of the night when Ellen woke up in her bed. Something was wrong. Something had awakened her, but she did not know what. She lay still, huddled under the covers, listening. The room was utterly black, the window only a shade of grey light. She could scarcely tell any difference when she opened her eyes and closed them. Now she heard it, a faint, oh so quiet rustling coming from the window? No, from outside the window, which she had left partly open. Someone or something was moving close to the house. Ellen began to tremble and made herself stop. Should she run to the window and slam it shut and lock it? Should she run from the room and wake Mrs. Fitzpatrick? What she wanted most to do was to pull the covers over her head and lie still, and hope it was just a prowling stray dog. But she knew it was not. It was too stealthy, too carefully quiet. Then the problem was solved for her. Whatever it was outside seemed to go suddenly mad, Well, there came through the window a raucous, terrifying burst of insane, shrieking laughter. She thought immediately of Mr. Gates. Now she did pull the covers over her head. Her door opened. She heard brisk footsteps through the room and heard Mrs. Fitzpatrick whisper, "Lie still. Don't move." She uncovered her eyes enough to see the pale grey rectangle of the window, the dim shadow of Mrs. Fitzpatrick holding something in her arms. Then a bright white flash. There was a shattering roar, as if the whole room were exploding. Something thudded to the ground outside, and then there came the sound of heavy footsteps, someone running away from the house. Mrs. Fitzpatrick moved slightly. The flash and the roar came again, and the footsteps doubled in speed. In the dimness of the window, Ellen could see the pale gleam of something long and blue. Mrs. Fitzpatrick was holding a double-barreled shotgun. "Whoever it was," she said, "he's gone now." "Who was it?" Ellen asked. "Someone looking for you, I expect." Mrs. Fitzpatrick opened the gun at the breech, took out the 2 spent shells, tossed them out of the window, slipped in 2 new ones, and clicked the gun shut again. She did it all with the most professional skill. But if he was trying to sneak up on us, why did he laugh like that? From the doorway of the room, Otto's voice said, "That was Richard. That's the noise he makes when someone scares him. But he has never made it at night before." "No," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick, "but no one has ever climbed into his tree at night before. I knew there was something wrong the minute I heard him." "Did you hit the man when you shot?" Otto asked hopefully. "No," said Mrs. Fitzpatrick, "I didn't try to hit him, but I wanted him to know that we are prepared and that he must stay away. I think," she went on, "from the fact that he was hiding in the tree, we can guess that he does not know Ellen is here. He was planning to hide and wait for daylight and watch." "Do you think it was Mr. Gates?" Ellen said. "I think not. I think Mr. Gates went back to wherever it was he came from, to the man he calls the King, and reported his failure. Having failed, I doubt that he would be sent to try again. But whoever he was, it's good luck for us that he gave himself away, for it lets us know 2 things. First, that they have not given up, and second, that they are still searching in this part of the forest. Those 2 things will help us decide that Ellen must do now." "What must I do then?" Ellen asked. "That we will discuss in the morning. Right now both of you should try and go back to sleep. You will have a hard day tomorrow, and for the rest of the night I think we should all stay together in the living room." Mrs. Fitzpatrick took the pillow and blanket from Ellen's bed and arranged them on the sofa. She made a pallet of blankets for Otto on the floor. She locked Ellen's room, both the window and the door. Then she settled herself in the armchair with the gun close at hand. "Go to sleep," she told the children. "I think there will be no more trouble tonight. And if there is, we are ready." Ellen kept the handbag with the crown in it on the pillow by her head. So that is chapter 9. So I think I'll stop and do a fresh chapter, so they're not too many together in one go. I hope you really enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.